This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We turn to Israel's war on Gaza. A special UN committee reported today Israel's action in Gaza are consistent with the characteristics of genocide, unquote. Another report by Human Rights Watch finds Israel's committed war crimes and crimes against humanity through its mass forced displacement of Gaza's civilians. This comes as the Biden administration's decided to continue arming Israel, even though aid groups say Israel's failed to meet a U.S.-imposed 30-day deadline to increase the flow of food and humanitarian aid into Gaza. We go now to Deir al-Balah in Gaza, where we're joined by Arwa Damon, founder of INARA, a nonprofit currently providing medical and mental health care to children in Gaza. Previously spent 18 years at CNN, including time as a senior international correspondent. Thanks so much for being with us, Arwa. This is your fourth trip back to Gaza since October 7, 2023. Tell us what you see there.
You know, Amy, you think you can't get worse, and then it does. You think people, quite simply, could never cope with these deteriorating conditions, and yet somehow they do. It's a situation that they have been forced into. Arguably, the conditions when it comes to access of humanitarian organizations and our ability to distribute aid actually getting into the Strip, we're talking about the lowest levels yet. And this is exactly during the time frame that the U.S. had given to Israel to actually improve the situation. We've seen it getting significantly worse. We're not just talking about a shortage in things like flour, food, water, fresh vegetables, hygiene kits. We're also talking about shortages in what's available on the commercial market. So even if you somehow had money to be able to go buy what you need, it quite simply isn't here. These hospitals that we keep talking about as being partially functioning, what does that actually mean? It means that if you show up bleeding, someone inside is going to try to stop the bleed. But do they actually have what they need to save your life? No. I was inside visiting some kids here at Aqsa earlier today and over the weekend. There's a little 2-year-old boy here whose brain you can see pulsing through his skin. His skull bone was removed. This little boy was not stabilizing properly because the ICU was missing a pediatric-sized tracheostomy tube. Now, luckily, we were able to, source some of them, and he has now stabilized, and he is off the ventilator. But this really gives you an idea of just how serious the situation here is. People are gathering to demonstrate for things like flour, for bread, for whatever it is that you can imagine. Winter is coming. The rains are coming. This means flooding is coming. And on top of just, water flooding, we're also anticipating that the sewage sites are going to be flooding as well. Aid organizations need to be able to have the capacity and the ability to, shift those sites to areas where they're not going to pose even more of a health hazard to the community. So, I mean, it's a complete and total nightmare. It's beyond being a nightmare.
If you can talk about this latest report, the special UN committee says Israel's action in Gaza are consistent with the characteristics of genocide, coming at the same time as a Human Rights Watch report. And UNRWA talks about famine being imminent in northern Gaza.
So if we're talking specifically about the northern province of Gaza, this is an area where, Israel launched its military operation there nearly 4 weeks ago. We have seen people repeatedly being forcibly displaced from their homes. There is very little access to medical assistance there. There has been absolutely no humanitarian assistance delivered there for about the last month. People are starving, they're dying, and it's not just bombs that are killing people, it's also disease. So when we look at the nature of what is happening in Gaza, you can't spend a day here, Amy, and not come away with the notion that you are witnessing a population that is being slowly exterminated. And I say slowly because, yes, bombs kill quickly, but disease and starvation, they are slow killers. And that is what a lot of people are facing here. And talk to anybody in Gaza, and there's absolutely no doubt in their mind that, one, they are living through their own annihilation, and two, what Israel is doing in the northern part is going to be repeated elsewhere. And this is also part of why you see a reluctance among the population to want to evacuate, because Gazans know, Palestinians know that when they leave, they're not going to be able to go back home. This is what history has taught them, and there is this very real ingrained fear among the population here right now that what they're going through at this moment is not the end. There is actually a real sense that the worst is yet to come. And they feel completely and totally abandoned by the international community, by global leaders, not to mention the United States. And everyone is convinced that right now Israel is going to have even more free reign to do whatever it is that it wants here. When you talk to people about what it is that they're going through, they do feel as if every single aspect of trying to survive here has been carefully orchestrated by Israel so that it is able to sort of meet America's bare minimum of standards, to allow America sufficient cover to say, oh no, there's improvement that's happening, and yet actually at the core of it is just another way to continue to kill the population.
And as you talk about the United States, which has given tens of billions of dollars in military aid to Israel. They did recently set a 30-day deadline to increase the flow of food and humanitarian aid into Gaza. But the U.S. has decided to keep arming Israel despite this, and despite the number of officials in the State Department and other parts of the U.S. government who have quit over this.
Yeah, and let's just look at the numbers. Let's just look at what happened when the U.S. started the clock for that 30-day deadline to improve humanitarian assistance. We saw very shortly afterwards the number of trucks accessing Gaza dip significantly, down to 30 a day, keeping in mind that one of the key demands that the U.S. had was that aid be increased to at least 350 trucks. So we saw this, decrease consistent of roughly 30 trucks a day for most of the month of October. Now in November, that number did go up to around 60, 70, but we're still talking about falling extraordinarily short, providing, barely 20% of what it is that the population here needs. We saw less access to these besieged areas in the north where people are effectively trapped or having to basically risk their lives. We've had numerous instances where aid has been delivered to the Kamar Redwan hospital in the north, for example, where shortly after medical evacuation teams have arrived there, there have been strikes. You have this very ingrained fear that exists among people right now, especially in the north, where some of them are saying, don't deliver anything because right after you're delivering, strikes are happening. And just to illustrate how it is that we try to move, so if we're moving from, south to north, for example, or even if we're moving within the northern areas, those movement requests have to be approved by Israel. And aid organizations are increasingly wary of moving around with what we call soft-skin cars, which is basically your normal vehicle that we used to move around in, because of the increasing frequency of instances at Israeli checkpoints where aid convoys have been shot at by IDF troops after receiving the green light, the okay to cross through, which means that for a lot of aid organizations, movement is limited to those who have access to armored vehicles that are more secure. And those don't really exist in Gaza in high numbers at all. And we're not allowed to bring in more to sort of beef up our capacity to be able to move around safely. I mean, no matter which way you look at it, Amy, you're constantly faced by numerous obstacles that don't need to be there. It feels very deliberate, not to mention the complete and total breakdown of security. Now we have numerous looting instances of aid trucks. We've repeatedly asked the Israeli side to be able to use alternative routes, to be able to use secured routes. Those requests are not being met. I mean, it's such an impossible situation to operate in. I feel like I keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. each time I come in. And the words to demonstrate how much worse it's getting quite simply lack in our vocabulary.
You also wrote a piece recently, The Devastation of Lebanon, for New Lines. And we have this headline, the Washington Post reporting close aide to Netanyahu told Donald Trump and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, that Israel's rushing to advance a ceasefire deal in Lebanon is a gift to Trump ahead of his January inauguration. Your response to the significance of Trump's election and what it means to the people of Lebanon and Gaza?
You know, first of all, anyone who lives in the Middle East and anyone who's kind of been focusing on the Middle East knows very well that it really doesn't matter who's in the White House, whether it's Republican or Democrat. That really is not going to change significantly U.S. policy towards this region. But the thing that we've been hearing, specifically when it comes to the re-election of Donald Trump, is at least he's not lying to us. At least whatever America is going to let Israel do, it's going to be done faster. So if our end is coming, at least it's going to come faster. Whereas when it comes to, specifically the Biden administration, the sense is that the Democrats are far more willing to allow this slower, more painful death. But the end result, no matter who it is, people are fully convinced is exactly the same. And all people really want right now is for this to end. People are suffocated, they're crushed, they cannot keep going like this. And they very much feel as if, no matter what it is, no matter who it is, Arabs are viewed by the United States and by the Western world as somehow being less than. Their lives are not that valuable. You constantly hear people in Gaza, and we were hearing the same thing in Lebanon, making comments like, well, America, it doesn't care if we live or die. It doesn't care how much we suffer. Our lives don't matter to them. And that is not really a perspective that changes all that much, no matter who is sitting in Washington.
We just have 30 seconds, Arwa. Why did you give up journalism for humanitarian work? What do you think you can accomplish at INARA that you couldn't do as a journalist?
There's a certain sort of privilege of being able to spend extensive periods of time with people and really get to know who they are. And I feel as if, moving around in the humanitarian sphere, I'm getting a different understanding of sort of people's emotional journeys, what it actually takes to be able to provide them with assistance. And it's provided me a different way of being able to continue to sort of share people's stories and experiences, but also be able to immediately at least try to provide assistance. The challenge that we have when we're out in the field as journalists is that you don't always see the impact. But when you're in the humanitarian space, there's a certain kind of magic when you're able to just bring a smile to a child's face. And I needed that.